Sorry.
Mr Chair. Again, we find ourselves debating the huge and growing threat of plastic pollution in our oceans. According to Recycle Track Systems, there's an estimated 75 to 199 million tonnes of plastic waste currently in our oceans, with a further £33 billion of plastic entering the marine environment every single year. This constant flow of plastic production is simply too much for the world's existing waste management and recycling infrastructure. Plastic makes up 85% of all marine pollution, and unless we reduce the amount of plastic waste we produce, it is simply impossible to meaningfully tackle this shocking and dangerous situation. Fishing equipment makes up a huge quantity of marine plastic waste, currently 20%, and at current rates will be enough to coat the entire planet in just 65 years. Plastic pollution seriously harms animal health disproportionately and impacts the ecosystems of developing countries. It is estimated that across the UK, 5 million tonnes of plastic is used every year, around half of which is packaging and half of which is not successfully recycled, with only around 9% of global plastics recycled each year. Plastic waste, of course, often doesn't decompose and can last for centuries in landfill or else end up as litter in the natural environment, which in turn pollutes soils, rivers and oceans and harms the creatures that inhabit them. So we know that the scale of this problem is huge, it's daunting, and it's a global challenge. But we can mitigate our throwaway culture, and the best way to reduce the amount of plastic entering our oceans is to reduce plastic waste. There are numerous initiatives to curb ocean plastic pollution at any one time, including everything from grassroots beach cleanups to international agreements. One of the recent changes is the United Nations Environment Assemblies Agreement in March 2022 to develop a legally binding treaty to bring plastic pollution to an end. It will still be years in the making, but it is a considerable step forward, according to experts. What's more, many organisations, such as Ocean Conservancy, are now calling for more dramatic changes to stop ocean plastic pollution, such as a reduction in production and consumption, as well as outright bans on single-use plastics, as the Honourable Lady mentioned. Many are calling for a shift to a zero-waste circular economy as the only solution to the plastic problem that we can't recycle away. And the Scottish Government aims to make Scotland a zero-waste society with a circular economy. It has a target of recycling 70% of waste by 2025, exceeding even EU targets and matching the EU target for plastic packaging to be economically recyclable or reusable by 2030. And as well as being a signatory to the Ellen MacArthur's Foundation's for New Plastics Economy global commitment, which will ban specified items of single-use plastics in EU member states. Signing up for this, even though there's no compulsion for Scotland to do so, no longer being a member of the EU, sadly. And I hope the EU government will study these examples and follow the example of Scotland and the EU in this regard. Scotland's deposit return scheme also works on the basis of the polluter pays, a principle which incentivises recycling, reducing litter and tackling climate change by reducing the amount going to landfill or ending up in our oceans. Now, we know that Scotland's deposit return scheme has been delayed because the First Minister is very keen to work with business to get this right, because in doing so, it is in all our interests, even if it is tempting, Mr Chair, as sometimes happens, to make some cheap political points about this. The reality is it is a fine and noble principle, and we should all be working to make sure that it can do what it says on the tin, because we all need to think about how we use and reuse and dispose of our plastic, because that's really the problem that the oceans face today. I will indeed.
Saxby.
I
And I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. And I just wonder if she'd agree with me that actually the deposit return scheme systems and what's being looked at across the UK is vital. But isn't it better, as we're talking here about international efforts, that we all work together to ensure that that runs across the whole country, rather than have different schemes in different parts, even of our own islands, making it more complex for everyone involved?
I absolutely agree with the Honourable Lady, but the point is that we can't all move at the slowest caravan, and we have to be quite bold and ambitious in what we seek our deposit return scheme to achieve. So yes, that would be a better way forward, but the UK government is slower and less ambitious in this regard. So that is a pity, and we can't be held back by that. The scale of the plastic pollution in our oceans is catastrophic, and it is deeply damaging and deadly to marine life and habitats. Now, it's very difficult to know how many marine animals are killed each year due to plastic pollution. Many will go completely unrecorded, but that said, some estimate that over 1 million animals, including many sea turtles, die each year due to plastic pollution in the ocean. The majority of animals which die are seabirds, with mammals often being more visible in the media and in the public imagination, but they actually only count for around 100,000 deaths. Still a huge number, but still not telling the whole story. What's more, these are just the marine animals that die as a result of plastic debris in the ocean. The toll would be much higher if other factors, other polluting factors such as emissions from plastic production were taken into account. But perhaps on a different tack, Mr. Chair, animals carry microplastics in their bodies. When they themselves are eaten, these microplastics are also ingested. This process is called trophic transfer of microplastics. Since one animal eats another, microplastics can move through the food chain and ultimately into the human food chain. Now, some scientists have estimated that the average person might eat 5 grams of microplastics in a week, about the weight of a credit card. Another study breaks that down to up to 52,000 particles annually from various food sources. I'll just make some progress on this point. According to the UN, there are over 50 trillion microplastics in the ocean, more than the number of stars in the Milky Way. That's astonishing. But due to the sheer quantity of microplastics in the ocean, it is difficult to find any marine animal without plastic particles in its gut or tissue. So this is poisoning our food supply. Whether or not microplastics impact human health is a relatively new field of study, but what we know so far is troubling, according to experts. Plastics and microplastics contain many harmful additives and tend to collect additional contaminants from their surroundings. Microplastic ingestion has been correlated with irritable bowel syndrome, while plastic-associated chemicals such as bisphenol A show correlations with chronic illnesses such as cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. So this is serious stuff, serious contamination we're talking about. So action on plastic waste in our oceans requires us to reflect very carefully on the price we pay for plastic pollution and the price our oceans pay. So I'm very pleased we've had this debate today, but the international community needs to take coordinated and serious action for marine health and for human health. And I'm very much looking forward to the Minister today to tell us what the UK Government will do and what international efforts that she believes can be made in this regard and led by the UK. And I thank the Honourable Lady for securing this debate and bringing it forward, because I think it's actually very important, and it's important we keep a spotlight on it.